Well, welcome back to another episode of everyone's favourite, or least favourite, Granny, worst reselling podcast ever. How are you today?
I'm very well. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. I decided to bathe myself in the sunlight out the back, or on the seashore, if you will. So
Yes.
it looks like the weather's starting to warm up here in Canberra, which is good.
Yes, it is here too. It's a nice sunny morning, which is lovely. The light streaming in the window.
And that's right. I was playing my Donkey Kong Game & Watch, and I had to Google how to play it. That's how bad it is. Yes, but I suppose before we get into today's episode, Granny, I want our viewers, press pause right now. Let us know what brought you to reselling. How did you find out about reselling, and what motivated you to get into reselling from that perspective? So did you watch a YouTube video? Did you read it in a newspaper article or online or something along the lines of that? Yeah, obviously, anyone that tells you they don't do it for money is either off the planet or lying. What was your entry into reselling from that perspective? So let me know in the comment section below.
Yes, making money is the end result for everyone. Like, that's why we do it, or we wouldn't be doing it at all. Even if you're doing it just for a hobby, you're still looking at trying to raise money, say, to buy a particular gaming console or hearing aids or, something like that.
Well, I was speaking to Soda City Flips a couple of weeks ago, and he was doing his new series about how reselling got him out of debt. So he had some debts. I'm not too sure what they were, where they originated from, and he used reselling to pay them off. I think under 12 months, which is a phenomenal way of actually using that extra income. So you're not affecting your main source of income if you are employed full time. You were basically using that to supplement it. But what brought you into reselling, Grady? Just out of curiosity.
Absolute desperation financially, because being my age and coming off being caring for my mum, I was on the carer payment, which is you're able to where I live, it's not expensive, so I could actually live off that quite comfortably. I won't say super comfortably, but okay. And then all of a sudden, I get lumped on to go onto job seeker payments from Centrelink, and at that stage, bad back, I couldn't work, and I knew that if I didn't do something about some way of making extra money, I was going to end up, losing my house or, something desperate. Like, it would be bad because you can't live off job seeker.
There's a lot of people that I've heard from that experience that they are very close to the poverty line, and they need that extra income to boost themselves up from that perspective. My entry into reselling was out of education. I suppose that you'd be hard pressed to try and find someone that's the same entry path as me. So a little bit of background story. I was doing a university course. We had to create a hypothetical online business, and it was basically everything was hypothetical to me, which is ludicrous, right? So I might as well just start an eBay account and transfer it across from that. So that was my entry point into reselling, and I actually fell in love with it because of how easy it was back in 2014 to find things and sell them. Like I said before, I used to sell a lot of Lego. I would literally go to Toys R Us, pick up a Lego set, put it on eBay, and by an hour and a half, 2 hours later, that Lego set was sold. So it was just really eBay back in its heyday. I did a live on Friday night, talking about bolos and all these different things. And what became very evident to me, this is not for everyone, but there is an element of this. I see an element of this in your Discord. I see a lot of these things on Reddit and on Facebook groups and all these different things. People are referring to others or so-called gurus to basically find out what they need to source and how much to sell things for and how to post. The title of this episode, if you haven't already worked out, is that you really don't need a guru other than yourself. If you become the reselling guru, that's what you need to rely on. You need to know your products. You need to know them well enough that you need to speak for 10 minutes of the product. If you can't, you've got no business in being in that niche per se. One-offs are a bit different. If you're looking to get into a niche, you need to know that product. And how do you learn that product? I will be touching on this topic next Friday night on the live on my channel, the Disgruntled Octopus. Granny, what do you think in that respect? Do you find that you need to be more of a guru yourself opposed to just relying on others?
I guess for me, I was really surprised when I started doing the social media side of things and actually interacting with the community. That's where I actually got quite surprised at the amount of people that were starting reselling without actually knowing what they were doing. And even the simple thing of actually learning how eBay works and how the platform works, how much the fees are, whether you need a store subscription straight away or because I'd done all that before I started. I actually spent about 6 weeks of actually, like, yes, I was watching some YouTube content, but it was specific stuff that I would look up. How do I do such and such?
Hmm.
And then if I didn't get the information there, I would find some other way to get that information, because I made the account on eBay, but then I needed to know how to use a platform and how to present my stuff, and yeah, every little detail about it. If you're just going to go to the op shop and just buy a heap of stuff and then just chuck it up on eBay without actually having done any research, how many times do we see in the Facebook group chats that someone says, "Oh, I sold such and such for $150, but I can't believe I had to pay this much in fees." Well,
Yeah,
why
or
didn't you
postage.
know that?
A lot of people are popping up in the guru space, I suppose you could say. I'm not talking about the main player. A lot of people that are running these courses now originated from that original daily refinement group, right? So basically taking the teachings away from that group, they're actually taking those teachings and making their Reseller Guru light courses, where they basically only know X amount. They try and stay a week ahead of their pupils. They just know a little bit more information than the people they're delivering. That's what I kind of want to bring onto the attention. There's going to be a lot of people that disagree with me in this stance. We're probably getting a lot of dislikes, but I really think that reselling can, financially damage you. Reselling is not going to make you profitable or, in positive territory. But you really, really, really need to know what you're doing. Like Grumpy Granny was saying, is that, she did the research. It's evident to me if I open up Facebook, look at the reselling groups, I look at Reddit, people don't realize that you have to pay fees on eBay. This is a corporation that's publicly trading. They're trading for for shareholders. So, they're trying to, squeeze every blood out of the, every drop of blood out of the stone per se. But you really, really need to be on top of it. People. A couple of weeks ago, I did a reaction video to someone that, promoted at 100% and wondered why they were down $800 after they sold a luxury handbag.
People they might have sold some stuff on Facebook Marketplace, right? And so they think, oh, well, that's working so well, I'll go and sell on eBay. But like, Facebook doesn't need to make money off you reselling on Facebook Marketplace, because it makes money out of advertising and everything on the main sort of social media side of things. But eBay is a platform for selling things. You have to pay to use their service. They provide you with the buyers and the means to actually get your product to the buyers, but you don't get that for free.
Before I segue into something you just mentioned there, I think in the United States, and if you are from the US, please put in the comment section below, you do have a Facebook Marketplace fee. I don't think it's very high. I think it's about 5%, but they do charge over there. The amount of comments that I see is, I can't believe eBay charges me, 20% or 15% or whatever the fee category is and what they're selling. I'm going to move to Shopify and make my own website and all these different things. And these people, they jumped onto eBay without knowing what they're doing. Now they're jumping onto Shopify without knowing what they're doing. You need to pay, traffic to Google and placements and all these different things, that it becomes infinitely more complicated to run a Shopify account than it does for an eBay account. eBay is almost point and click, right? So you buy the product, throw it into eBay, get paid. And that's realistically, obviously got the shipping component in there as well. But that's as easy as you can get from a reselling capacity.
I'm currently selling on Etsy, Depop, and eBay, and all three are the same. Like, there are fees to pay, but it's so much cheaper than if I had a bricks and mortar store, and that's what I always related to, because how else would I be selling my stuff? Because even if I was doing a pop-up shop, I would have to rent the premises to do a pop-up shop, or if I was going to go into one of those where there's one shop but a whole heap of vendors within that space, you're still paying a fee to be in there. So regardless of how you do it, and you're limited to how many people are going to see your product. Even if you're going to do a stall at a market, you've got to pay a fee to have a stall at a market.
That market setup you said, where you're basically in a building with a collection of other sellers, like a stall or something along that. Diary of a Flipper, he does that in the vintage markets where he is. That, if you can source a particular niche, for him it's vintage clothes, vintage toys, Pokemon cards and all those different things. He makes a killing out there. I wish I had access to that, to tell you the truth, because I would literally pay something similar in Canberra, and I'm quite surprised that there isn't something in Canberra in that respect, that you do something along the lines of that. Just to have that extra outlet where it's autonomous. So from what I, talking to Judder, is that he might have a shift once a month or once a week or something like that, or he can pay off his shift. So someone else, he can pay someone to come in and fill the shift kind of thing. But that to me is probably, I would go to that kind of platform before I went to Shopify. But that would be after infinite amounts of research, because you'd have to look, it wouldn't work in Donald because you've got a population of 13 and a half people. But
Exactly.
so where he's in
hang on.
Ballarat.
Oh, I can hear a baby crying. Now there's 14.
Yeah, that's right. Just 14 people just fell over at the nursing home, so -6. But you really need to be in like a tourist town or a capital city or something with a high traffic. Ballarat being where he is, more of that touristy country town. People come through there all those times. But being in middle of the Northern Territory, or somewhere with very, very little foot traffic coming through, you wouldn't survive in that situation. And this is what's going back to what we're saying, is that people in this Facebook group, and I'm not pointing out anyone in particular, even though that I could probably name one person in particular. They would go to Donald with a population of -6 people and open up a stall and wonder why they're not selling, because they didn't do any research on the demographic. They didn't do any research on the age of people, what their interests are, what the niches they're interested in. All these different things come into play, right? So, going back to that old, thing that everyone throws around, eBay, you've got 2, 3, 4, 500 million people have access to eBay, use eBay on a semi-regular basis. All these different things, right? How many people do you reckon are popping around Donald? So these are things, or looking up, Grumpy Granny's grand collection of, paraphernalia.com.au. For example, if I was to create a website, I'd make it Octo's Treasures or octo.com.au or something along the lines of that, just really short and straight to the point, so people know what they're looking for from that perspective. You'd have to research, what are you going to call these things? And, these people would probably go with, a string of words that make no sense to anyone outside their head, .com.au or .com. And go from that perspective. So you really, really, really need to do your stuff. I did mention on the live I was the other night that I have no issues disclosing my bolos, especially in the private format. So basically, for those that weren't aware, I have deleted that video. And the purpose behind that is because I'm going to do a bit of a reaction video today. So it's basically on a gentleman in the US that had backdoor access to Goodwill. So they look at the back area of when they're actually processing the items coming through and all these different things. When I checked it this morning, it's viewed 83,000 views, and it came out about a fortnight ago. So it's definitely something, if you're in that way inclined, you need to get into that niche. But Goodwill has basically said they're actively trying to cut resellers out of the market, right? So the reason why I disclosed my bolos in, I suppose, somewhat of a private video on Friday night is that you don't know who's watching your videos, right? So, for example, I've got a screen up here with the Salvation Army. I'll just bring it up quite quickly. If you click here, shop all categories, shop on eBay and shop on Depop as well now. So, the Salvation Army are floating across to Depop as well. So, they're furthering their reach out. If I'm putting videos up about Skylanders, and this is evident across categories, right? So, there are videos out there about Skylanders. There are videos about all the different things. So, but I would say I'm probably one of the first YouTube resellers to talk about Skylanders quite heavily. Salvos has caught onto the Skylander niche. Right? It's really obscure. So you wouldn't wake up one day and think, Skylanders are worth thousands of dollars. Let me just research this and see how we go, kind of thing. So going back to what I was saying before.
I mean, you only have to look at, I've had a good look at what they do and they auction everything on eBay. Everything goes up for auction. And, that stuff, that's the really good bolo stuff, is going and getting sorted out the back of getting listed online, not getting put in the store. But, sometimes they're making, people are paying huge amounts for stuff, way over what the thing's worth. Whether that's because it's a salvos, whether that's because it's on auction, maybe it's a combination of both. I've bought some books off there. I got bargains. If no one else is bidding and they don't know what it is, but if someone puts a bundle of Skylanders up there, the chances are they're going to pay well over what it's worth.
I personally think that the people bidding on those websites, or like for salvos or vinnies and all those different things, are resellers. They're basically watching videos like about Skylanders where I'm quite pointed, right? I say, hey, look, this 99.9% Skylanders are garbage. These are the ones you need to look out for. All they hear is Skylanders are worth money. Lego's worth money. And I'll just, scoop them all up and all these different things and pay $200 for something you probably wouldn't even pay $10 for. Salvos are trying to do their market research, right, for free. The conundrum is that, and it kind of pisses me off, they're watching videos like mine, where I'll use me as an example, right? So they're watching, well, my head's not this big for any reason. They're watching videos like myself, like, Diary of a Flipper, Commonwealth Picker, and all these different things where they're saying, hey, look, we're sourcing, case in point yesterday, Levi jeans. Where I used to pick them up for $7, they're now $20 a pair. They're watching videos saying, hey, look, the best 10 brands to sell in jean category are Levi's, True Religion, all these different things. They're writing this down and obviously using that as free product research, right? So no longer are we making content for aspiring resellers and people want to know what to do and how to, work out their business. We're actually making free content for these organizations that are actually seeking to take us out of the equation. So either the Salvation Army starts paying me a sponsorship deal, Salvos, I can be bought out. It's only a 6-pack of donuts. Or, you can basically, like I said, that for me personally, I'm more than happy to disclose bolos. However, I'm doing that in a private capacity. That I'll probably do it for 30 minutes or 45 minutes on a Friday night. And as soon as that live ends, it's done. Well, I delete that video, right? So which I deleted on Friday night as well. I didn't realize I unlisted it. So if you had watched it, you can go back and watch it, but I sent Graham, the Aussie Nurse Flipper. It's a bit of a stickler for fun, that Graham. He goes, you didn't delete it. So guess what? I deleted it now. So thanks everyone to Graham. You can't watch that video again. What it comes down to is that I'm really getting out there and saying, hey, well, look, this is what I personally source. And going back to on Friday night as to the bolos is that I'm showing people what I look for, not telling what people want to buy. And that goes piggyback on the different things. And I did mention it, and I don't know if it was the point where I was rambling with my microphone off, but when I talk about bolos, that happened for 15 minutes.
If only you could have, we were in my Discord, all watching him, and if only you could have heard the sledging that went on and the words that we were saying.
You summoned a demon from what I was told, the amount of swear words you're coming.
Something like that. Well, let's just say that your channel would no longer be online because YouTube would have banned you.
What it comes down to is that I'm not afraid to share those bolos for I know those categories back to front. You're no real competition to me, right? So unless, out of that, just say there's 100 people that watch that video, probably only one person, two people would probably take that effort that's required to learn that category, to learn that bolo, to actually come across that bolo and to know what they're looking for and all these different things. It kind of, I wanted to prove a point as to that people will watch these things and they want to be relayed information. They want to ingest the information. They want to know what's going on. They don't really want to do the research themselves. I'm happy to oblige, and tell them, hey, look, this is what I look for. This is what I buy. You're more than welcome to try and replicate it, but I can guarantee you, I'll probably take your part.
When it comes to videos about selling on eBay in particular, and I mean, most of my stuff's tutorial wise. So someone will ask me, how do I do this? And I'll make a video about it because it's much easier than trying to explain it over 20 times. And I started doing that more so that some of the pitfalls that I came across, that other people wouldn't have to go through that. And that's worked out. That's, great. And I don't mind sharing at all, but it's just people, that's their way of wanting to digest that content.
I came across something very profound yesterday. And I think this pretty much, I wouldn't say it's a clean analogy, but it probably sums up my stance or the way that I'm trying to move forward in the reselling community perspective, right? I have said numerous times that I jump into Facebook groups and give my 2 cents worth. When people, Grumpy Granny might ask a question, I'll jump in and tell her what it is, only for me to realize that Grumpy Granny got the answer she wanted or didn't want most of the time, deletes the thread. So people that ask the same question a day later because that original person deleted the thread, or then they start arguing with you and all these different things, right? So it's not worth my time.
There was always a lot of times I stopped doing it because there was a lot of times you would give the person the answer, but that wasn't the answer they wanted, so they didn't take any notice of you anyway.
No. So the analogy that I've moved to is the Lighthouse and the Tugboat, right? So I think it's fantastic, and I'm going to interpret it my way. My understanding is the Lighthouse is basically, it's a stationary thing. It's basically, providing light and warning everyone. It doesn't necessarily care if you succeed or otherwise. It's just basically putting the information out there and say, hey, look, there's rocks here. You can choose to smash yourself amongst the rocks, or you can use that knowledge to, go somewhere else, kind of thing. Opposed to the Tugboat, which runs out and fixes that one ship up, then, does all these different things. So me jumping into the Facebook groups is acting like a tugboat, right? So, hey, Grumpy Granny, your question is this. All right, I'm going to respond to you. Then, like I said, that Grumpy Granny either argues with me or deletes the thread and all these different things. So I've wasted my time being individualized, right? So catering to that one person, where I could basically put medium out, like, basically,
Yep.
YouTube channels showing people how to do things, bolo videos, how to research, all these different things. So that looks at it from a Lighthouse perspective, right? This is the way that I take that interpretation, is that I'm putting the information out there. You're more than welcome to take it or otherwise. You go, hey,
Yep.
look, I agree with that, or I don't agree with that, and leave it at that. I don't particularly
Yes.
care. I'm no longer going into Facebook groups or going into these different things, answering questions. I actually got banned from a Facebook group because I answered a question, and I said, hey, look, I answered this question, and I've answered a couple of other questions you may have in this YouTube video at the bottom of it. But it was like, further or 5 comments down under the original one.
So,
are you talking about Judder's OnlyFans account?
yes, exactly.
Speaking about that, I actually had a nightmare last night about Blake starting his own reselling podcast with a bikini model. I can't compete with that, Leanne. I won't look good in a bikini. So if you're starting a reselling podcast with a bikini model and you need a fill-in, that's the stance I'm taking from the reselling perspective now. I'm going to try and be more of a reselling lighthouse, where I'm going to say, hey, look, this is the way I do it. You can take the information or you can't take the information. I don't necessarily care either way, right?
I can only show them what I do, and if that helps them, that's great. If it doesn't, and I think that's a good part about, and I'll mention Grumpy Granny's Discord too, because that's a really good community of people that will, and if I'm not there to answer a question, someone else will always jump in and answer it, because I'm not the world's most perfect knowledgeable person. I don't know everything, but there are people in there in all different categories of selling that are helping each other out by doing that. But it's just so much better than those Facebook groups, because there's no nastiness or anything, and the information is left there for someone else to come in and find it again later. It's great.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, and I'm more than happy to help people on occurrence and all those different things. But me actively going out to assist people, like in Facebook groups that I don't know or haven't approached me personally, I think those days are numbered, or if not already over. Purely because I don't have the inclination now. Because I'm not saying that I'm seeking, gratitude, or I'm seeking, fame, or any notoriety. Probably more close to what it actually is. But
it took you a lot longer to get there than it did me. I gave up 6 months ago.
Yeah, and that's like I said. I think that from my perspective, that's where I'm trying to go from that perspective. Because, like I said, that working full time, trying to do YouTube channels,
trying to get out of the cage.
It could be, I think. Something's going on back there. We're glad we've only got 2 minutes 30, so I can start beating the minions. But like I said, like I've said numerous times, you're more than welcome to reach out to me on Instagram and all those different things. However, I won't be actively going out. When I see people tag me on Instagram, in stories and all these different things, Christian messaged me yesterday, which is fine. Forest Finds online, no problem with that. So I've had people just tag me in stories, not even reach out to me, or you're showing me, or you're getting out. So these are the things, and like I said, that's the analogy that I resonate.
He's gone again, muted. Life's fun when you're doing making lives and things and podcasts for YouTube, because this sort of thing happens all the time, and you get these interruptions and stuff, and the noise in the background you've got to be wary of, and the light streaming in the window and all that sort of stuff.
That's right. Yeah, it's very environmental factors, they're called. It's a busy life. We have to get a lot more famous, Granny, and become YouTube famous. We can actually have our own studios and go from that perspective. But
that would be good. Well, I actually made a little short this week, which I think I put it up a day or so ago, and it was on about the distractions. You have to get rid of your distractions when you're actually trying to work to, be a reseller, because it's often those distractions. It might be the knock on the door, might be your friend wanting to come over for coffee when you're supposed to be listing or doing your book work, all those things, or the kids are shouting at you, Mum, Dad, can you come here? And you've just sort of sat down to start taking your photos, and there's all these sorts of things if you are working from home, and that's regardless of whether you're doing reselling or what you're doing. But if you're working from home, there are a lot of factors around you, distractions, environmental, as Octo says, that can affect how your day goes and how much work you actually get done. And it could be as simple as the phone ringing.
That's right. Yeah. Well, or groceries. But anyway, Granny, what do you have on this week before I wrap it up for another week?
I'll have a couple of new videos coming out this week. One is going to be a little bit of an ASMR type thing of me doing a lot of photography so that people can see how I do my photos and what my photo setup is. There's also a What's Sold video coming out shortly. And then my new Stories from History video is about my great-great-grandfather who was from America and he jumped ship here. He was in the Navy, and he jumped ship here so that he could join the gold rush in the Victorian goldfields. And then, later on went along to blow himself up. So, yeah, it's good.
You've probably seen the family line appearing. But
well, luckily he didn't blow himself up until after he'd had kids.
No, I did see that video come through. One that your family ran off with a colt, which is... Anyway, I have a couple of What's Sold videos and also a reaction video coming out. I think the reaction video will probably come out before this video comes out, and also the Flipwise review, which I'm actually got a bit of steam coming up behind it. A lot of people are actually asking me. I have spoken to Justin. Justin's said, look, reach out to him first just to make sure that I got the the grievances are legitimised, right? So I'm doing some research in that respect just to see if I'm actually haven't missed anything. But anyway, I think the
good thing, just so we can go 1 minute longer, but I think the good thing is with Justin reaching out and having conversation with you shows that his willingness to add support and stuff to the product, which is a good thing.
Oh, he's probably watched our daily refinement video.